And so let us begin. If you can take your seats, you're still free to eat while we are in this question and answering opportunity. I'm going to begin by introducing our at-large candidates. I am going to do it in alphabetical order. And so we will begin with Lee Altman, who is running for at-large. You can give her a hand if you like.
Thank you.
We have Pat Cotham, who is running. We have Arthur Griffin, who is also running. And new to the candidate pool of running for at-large, we have Yvette Townsend Ingram. Please give her a hand. And I'm sorry, I don't have your name.
It's okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Blake Van Leer.
And Blake Van Leer. Please give him a hand. That was not intentional, Blake. Okay. All right, so let us begin first by each of you beginning to just take 60 seconds to tell us who you are and why you believe it's important for you to run. And since I did not have Blake Van Leer's name, we're going to start with you.
Okay, thank you. It's okay. Let me see. There we go. Hi, everyone. I'm Blake Van Leer. And I wanted to say thank you to all the precincts here and the long history with your civic action. It's an honor to be up here. I look forward to getting to know you. Obviously, looking at the panel here, I'm the new kid on the block here. And why I'm running is Mecklenburg is growing massively. And so, I'm looking forward to working with my fellow commissioners here, hopefully win or lose, but, just to help Mecklenburg grow in the right direction and build a great future together. So I look forward to your questions tonight, and thank you.
Okay. Arthur Griffin?
Good evening, everyone. My name's Arthur Griffin, and I am running for re-election to the Mecklenburg County Board of County Commissioners at large. I want to first say thank you to the organizations for putting on this event and giving me an opportunity to earn your vote and your support tonight. I'm running simply because to make upward mobility a reality rather than a political slogan. When you look out around the horizon, African Americans in particularly are leading the pack in every negative institutional data insight there is. And I want to remove that. I want to make sure that Mecklenburg County, the quality of life for all of our citizens, and I don't want us to have two Mecklenburg counties. I want us to have one Mecklenburg County. I'm working and fighting to make sure that occurs. Thank you.
Lee Altman?
Thanks so much to the organizers. My name is Lee Altman. I'm in my second term on the Board of County Commissioners. Before I ran for office, I represented at-risk children here in Mecklenburg County. It brought me into homes and schools and every, north, south, east, and west. And I remember a boy that I once represented whose mother took him into an emergency room because she thought he was being abused. It turned out she was abusing him, but she didn't realize it because she had untreated mental health issues. And so my job was to get his custody transferred to his father, which I did. But after I closed the case, I got a call that the dad had just dropped him back off at the mother's. So despite my advocacy, he was still with a mother who didn't have health access. He was still in a school that wasn't meeting his needs, and he was not going to have good outcome. And it broke my heart. And so I ran for the Board of County Commissioners because we have a $2.3 billion budget for public health, mental health, education, welfare, and the environment. And I'm running again to continue to make progress on these issues.
Thank you. Yvette Townsend Ingram?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Yvette Townsend Ingram. I am asking for your support and for you to help me to grab that baton to be elected to the Board of County Commission at large. I want to thank my colleagues here. I'm usually on that side of the podium with the chair. I am precinct chair of 89, and we usually kind of co-host along with the rest of the precincts. But I'm running for several different reasons. Like I said, currently serve you as precinct chair. I'm also on the North Carolina State Executive Committee. I've served this community for the last 27 years since I moved here from West Virginia. I have 2 sons that matriculated and graduated through Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools. That should give me a medal in itself. I also worked in Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools for 2 years. I have the most intimate knowledge and relevancy, because I'm not ashamed to say I've used Charlotte-Mecklenburg services, despite how I don't look like what I've been through. So I can relate, and that relevancy has built an urgency inside of me. So I want to offer myself up to additional service, and I want to run. Thank you.
Pat Cotham?
Oh, thank you. I'm Pat Cotham. I'm running for my 7th term on the County Commission. All the precinct leaders here, I was a precinct leader for 10 years in my precinct, and I have been very involved. I was on the State Executive Committee for 15 years. I was elected twice to be a DNC member representing the state, and president of the Democratic Women twice. And all those things, I worked on so many campaigns, from Ella Scarborough's campaign to Nancy Carter to many other candidates, and I certainly attended a lot of group events. But I wanted to run because I had worked helping people who had been incarcerated find employment, and I saw all the injustices, and that made me motivated to run in 2012. And since I've been there on 2012, I have been rewarded by the votes of the people, and they continue to want me to run, so that's why I continue to run, because I work for the people.
Thank you. Well, the questions have not changed, except from some of the questions that may come from the audience, but the questions that we have are exactly the same. And I will begin with the first question that we would like to ask. One of your priorities is to improve wraparound services. What are the wraparound services, and how will you improve them? It's 90. And we will begin with Pat Cotham with that question.
Okay, thank you. You know, there are wraparound services and wraparound services. There are different ones for different groups. We have wraparound services for children, for homeless families, for men who are homeless, for veterans. We have many different kinds of services. One thing that we don't do a good job is communicating all the resources we have. And that is a continual problem at the county, and something that I speak out about all the time. And because people do not know the services we have. And even, I have to say, even the county commissioners, I learn something every week about services that the county has. But we need to, instead of just trying to improve them, we need to let people know what we have. And it can't just be, it's on our website, because not everybody has access to the internet. So we need to do a better job of working with community influencers, pastors at churches, different groups, to make sure that they have information to share with the people. But we could do a much better job there, and just have it make it much more accessible, and also for our senior citizens. But we have to meet people where they are, and they're not all on the internet.
Thank you. Lee Altman, please answer.
Thank you. So we all get in tough spots, and there comes a moment in our lives when maybe we can't get over the finish line without some help. And I am so proud to serve with commissioners and to live in a county with residents who value ensuring that we have that supportive net when you need it. So we have robust investments for affordable housing. We try to help people stay in their homes with funds for critical home repair. We do support subsidized housing. We fund legal aid so that people who are being wrongfully evicted can have legal representation, so their rights can be protected and vindicated. We support veterans, and we have a program to help subsidize your property tax if you cannot afford to pay it. We spend $23 million helping people afford childcare. so you can go to work and get ahead and build a future for yourself and your family. We spend a lot of money for services for health access for people who don't have it, and behavioral health. So these are my values. I believe they're your values, and that's why it's so important that you go vote, because here at the local level, there's, like I said, a $2.3 billion budget on the line for critical services for 1.1 million people. Thank you.
Arthur Griffin.
Thank you. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. I serve as chair of the Public Health and Human Services Committee of the Board of County Commissioners. So to answer your question, it's the safety net for people, families, and children. Folk who have needs that have fallen through the cracks. Wraparound service are in fact those services that we provide, from social services to financial services, et cetera. I served on the Board of Social Services here when there was a Board of Social Services. I served on the first Human Services Advisory Council. So human services is my thing. I served at Legal Aid Society for 20 years. But I'm back into this game because I want to make sure that we are accountable in providing those services so that we move people forward. For the very first time here in Mecklenburg County, we have an upward mobility program called Mech Success 2.0. It's the only program in Mecklenburg County of its kind where we have committed to elevating families to living wage jobs or in school on track to living wage jobs from 2 to 5 years. So you don't have to wait around for 20 years or 30 years with the same broken record. We're on record, thanks to my colleagues for voting for this program, to demonstrate that we can help people by providing wraparound services to be successful. So I look forward to your other questions as it relates to human services, but because I chair Public Health and Human Services, that's a very special area that I really have put a lot of attention to. Thank you.
Yvette?
My point of reference for wraparound services, and if you notice, if you have that pretty little purple slip from me, my second priority is to improve wraparound services. And my point of reference is when I worked for Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools for 2 years. For instance, if a child comes in and you know for a fact that child only gets one meal a day, it's probably a good bet that the parent is not eating as well either. So making those referrals, having social workers in the school that can get a little nosy and see that, oh, this child may have bruises and maybe the parent is experiencing something in that household, or maybe another sibling is experiencing something in that household towards the child. There may be mental services that are needed. It's going to require us to be that village that we talk about. See something, say something. So wraparound services is giving people what they don't know that they need. If they don't know that the county offers it, they can't ask for it. Wraparound services is actually looking at a list of those elderly who can't afford to pay their taxes and may be priced out, and going to them in some kind of mode of different communication to say, hey, we have an at-homes program with the county where we can help you supplement the cost of those taxes. Wraparound services means, like was mentioned before, having that safety net. But again, you don't know what you don't know. So being able to communicate with the community, to let them know that these services are there for them. There's many services that I didn't know were there for me. So.
Okay. Van Leer?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm a numbers person, but it's also affects me personally. I've had a son that was in the hospital for 40 days. He had over 136 procedures. Was looking at $1 million hospital bill coming out of there, and thankfully I was able to get some of the insurance to pay for that. But anybody could fall on those times and be in a situation where you need some additional services or a boost, and so we were just looking at what do we do in those scenarios. Also, I have a dad with dementia, and looking at extra resources to help your loved ones while you're trying to help your family. Just looking at the data, if Charlotte's growing massively, it's pretty straightforward math. You're going to need more resources for helping the homeless, helping them find the access to those services. But then additionally, you probably need more resources and you need better communication, I would come in with a fresh perspective and look at how do we use simple things like YouTube, TikTok. It doesn't cost a lot. You can better the communication, use modern technology. You can look at AI, ChatGPT. Everyone's got access to that, to where you could just simplify it. Just say, hey, can you give me the highlights? Can you help me find these programs? A lot of the communication for finding those programs I find is people just don't know where to look. They don't know they can get help with their energy bill and a boost. So thank you. Happy to talk more about that.
Thank you. Recently on the news, there was concern that funding that was provided through COVID would be impacting daycare centers. So how will the county commissioner fit that gap of funds to assist those daycare centers who would either have to lay off staff or increase prices to the parents? What is available through the county that you would be able to assist as a wraparound service? I'm going to pose that question to Pat Cotham first, please.
I don't know if we have anything specifically for that. We support a lot of the child care resources for families who are struggling and help pay for that. And we also have MEC Pre-K, which we have put in more than $20 million to help prepare our children for school. But I don't. All of the ARPA money is. It's not just, well, do whatever you want with it. It's very much regulated. And so there are specific things that have to be used at certain times. So I can't say we've ever been briefed on anything specifically about daycares. A lot of the daycares are privately owned. Some of them are chains, corporate ones. So, there's also that as well. So that's a very complicated subject. And I would think that if we did something, we would have to probably work more with the independents than the big corporate chains on what they're doing. But again, it's nothing that we've ever been briefed on at the county commission. But it's a topic worth discussing.
Thank you. Townsend Ingram.
So I do have a little bit of experience with those ARPA funds. I wrote a grant for Johnson C. Smith University to fund Black birthing professionals in light of the crisis with Black mortality rate. What I think that we can do to positively impact the clawing back of those funds is to expand pre-K. Now that starts at 4 years of age, but it is a start. Working with those organizations in the community that offer child care services, offering them the same incentives that we do for corporations and things of that nature. Working with community partners to supplant those costs for parents. And as well, looking for other federal dollars, grants, and things of that nature. So I think that there are things that we can do. We're definitely going to have to think outside the box, and it's not going to be a quick, easy fix that's going to be done tomorrow.
Thank you. Altman?
Thank you. So for those folks who are not aware, when we're talking about MEC Pre-K, that is an innovative program that Commissioner Dunlap can correct me, but I think it was first sort of spearheaded by Commissioner Trevor Fuller and then supported by the full board. And we all owe a debt of gratitude for that vision, because the goal of it is to provide universal access to pre-K for all 4-year-olds, which is pretty awesome and something that I'm not aware if any other counties in the state of North Carolina took it upon themselves in terms of the initiative and the cost. So I think our outlay at the moment is $23 million for that. And as I mentioned, we have invested $23 million for child care services. So that's a total of $46 million, which is very substantial, but it doesn't answer your question, which is what happens when these federal ARPA dollars are ending to subsidize other programs. And, what I would say to you is that, we surveyed the community about how to spend the ARPA dollars we got. And we certainly did put extra resources towards childcare. I think mental health actually was the top billing, and that obviously is a very important priority. There's a lot of services that people need, that residents need, from healthcare to childcare to housing, and we need this. Am I out of time? Darn, okay, I'll go back to it.
Okay, Van Leer, please.
Sure, I think that's an amazing program, by the way. You had me at babies, so that's a personal, that hits me personally. But, you know, coming from the numbers perspective and having the babies as like the ultimate success, like how do we help them more? You know, I'd love to work with our commissioners and just see how we can like look at those numbers. Maybe there's some missed opportunities. You know, that's a new aspect to me, and you know, I'll be learning with them and how I can help them and roll up my sleeves. But it's a no-brainer to fight for our kids. So, yeah.
And thank you. And Arthur Griffin?
Frederick Douglass said, it's easier to build strong children than to fix broken men. Clearly, pre-K child services, quality child services is important for any community, particularly Mecklenburg County. We spend $23 million for MEC pre-K. We spend $18 million in support of Bright Beginnings with the Charlotte Mecklenburg schools. We're looking for other avenues to try to support home daycares because they're not in the normal mix. But that's $41 million as a part of our regular budget. That's not from COVID funds, et cetera. Certainly that we'll continue to look careful at those funds, how they're being spent, and what the results are once they go to regular school in terms of being ready for kindergarten. But the regular budget now supports $41 million for those students. I don't recall the exact number of students that are benefiting from that, but I do know the exact figure is $41 million.
Okay, thank you. And let me just pause for a moment to let you know that we are live, so if there are questions from anyone in the community that is watching us online, please put your questions in the chat and we'll have someone to monitor to ask those questions. Thank you. And so there is a question that is directed to Arthur Griffin, and I'd like to ask this question now. Pfeiffer Avenue has been renamed to Montfort Point Drive to honor Black veterans, but it's located near the site of the homeless tent city. Can Commissioner Griffin support erecting a Black veterans monument in the Brooklyn neighborhood?
Certainly. I'm trying to get my old high school back in the Brooklyn neighborhood. I certainly would like to resurrect any type of historical things back in the Brooklyn neighborhood. We just had an event called America 250 North Carolina. Mecklenburg County has consistently provided support for historical figures along the Sugar Creek Way. If you know where Kings Drive and Moorhead Street, there's a statue of Julius Chambers. But with respect to a African American monument honoring the services of African American, I certainly would work with my colleagues as a life member of the Veteran of Foreign Wars, as a member of the American Legion, and as a Vietnam veteran. I'm already working with various veterans organizations to try to make sure that we recognize veterans here in Mecklenburg County. And the idea of a monument for African American veterans certainly is appealing to me. And I'll just reach out to the organizations that I currently belong to get their support and see if that's something that we can do. But as I said to you, I am a Vietnam veteran. I am a life member of the Veteran of Foreign Wars, a member of the American Legion Association, and also very supportive of Fred Brewer, who was a Second Ward High School graduate that was a Tuskegee Airman. So there are a number of people talking about those events. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. One of your priorities is to diminish food insecurity in 6 zip codes. How do you plan to accomplish this? And we'll begin this question with Blake Van Leer.
For that, listening to the previous commissioners, I would want to work with them to try to amplify our existing efforts right now. So measure the success of what we're doing right now, and so we can do that better. The same thing with the previous question with the kids. If we're doing $41 million and we don't know what the exact metrics are, we want to look at and measure how many lives are we impacting. There's certain ways we can probably amplify what we're doing with the community. I think, that's just really important that we work with the communities closely and open communication, consistent communication.
Thank you. Yvette Townsend Ingram.
That's actually one of my priorities as well. I actually live in one of those zip codes, one of those 6 zip codes, and I work in one of those 6 zip codes. I work for Johnson C. Smith University. And I have been instrumental in working with the community to try to positively impact the farmers markets that we have in the area. I know Commissioner Dunlap mentioned the Three Sisters grocery chain that's going to be introduced on West Boulevard. In 2022, I was co-lead along with Mr. Ronald Ross, which I think is in the audience, and we suggested for District 2 having micro food gardens, and that's a fancy term that just kind of meant in certain plots of land that is either owned by a church, for instance, my church Friendship, or the county or the city, having small fruit trees and vegetables and things of that nature, community gardens, expanding them, supplementing them, and helping them until we can convince grocery stores to move and be on grocery lines where there is the most need.
Thank you. Lee Altman.
Thank you. Well, the information that George Dunlap provided was good. It was a very good summary, and I would just add to what he said. I think what he was trying to remember was Carolina Farm Trust has purchased a facility in West Charlotte that we went to sort of like a groundbreaking for. It's going to be awesome. It's going to have a butchery, a grocery store, a teaching kitchen, community gathering space. It's going to be more than just a place where local farmers can bring their food. It's more than just a farmer's market. It's going to be a whole sort of community activator. And that's really exciting. I would like to give a shout out to Commissioner Leek because she has been advocating for this for a very long time, and our county manager has tried very hard to deliver it, but as you already heard, it's been difficult to incentivize private grocers to go where they don't want to go. And so so finding a solution has been a long time coming, but I'm very excited about the Carolina Farm Trust. If it's successful with its pilot project, it could be replicated. And also we have I serve on the Environmental Stewardship Committee, and one of our things we're working on is developing a better support system for local farmers because their land is vanishing and they're not supported. But we need to focus on food security, across Mecklenburg County.
Okay, Arthur Griffin.
Thank you. I've been on the county commission for almost 14 months, so I think I've gotten a few things accomplished, but on the food insecurity piece, because I grew up in public housing, one of the first things I started doing as a county commissioner was going through the public housing neighborhoods, and particularly the senior citizens tower, and doing our first budget. As a result of those conversations, a lot of senior citizens indicated that they can't get to the farmer's market, and if they got to the farmer's market, how are they going to carry their groceries, their produce, etc. So my very first budget, I sent an email to the county manager when she asked what are some things we're concerned about, and one was a mobile food market. And I think as a result of the last budget, I think we had 2 vans. We shown a demonstration of those vans at our last retreat, where they'll be going around to different communities where people can get fresh vegetables and produce. Hopefully we can get more of those mobile units through our next budget cycle to address that specific area. Because I'm the oldest rat in the barn up here on the stage, I remember, and there are pictures of Harris Teeter on the corner of LaSalle and Beatty's Ford Road. So I've only been on for 14 months, but I intend to revisit that to find out what's going on. In terms of income, food stamp folks dump $900 million into Mecklenburg County every year. So when there's a question of economics, time, okay. Thank you very much.
And Tupac Cotham.
I'm not happy with this at all. We have been talking about this for at least 6 years. And yes, we have talked to some nonprofits, and we have talked to about, these natural food markets. And we have done our own in certain months of the year, in the warm months at Rosa Parks. We've had places where people can come. But the thing is, people want a grocery store. That's what they want. They want a food line. They don't necessarily want a Publix or Harris Teeter. They want a store that's easy and that they can, and is affordable. And there was conversations with these grocers, and but frankly, I don't think we would hit it hard enough. We have to help them make the numbers work. If that means help them with taxes or with their land to get, because they have to make a certain amount of money. So we have to make them whole so that they can. But I don't think we try hard enough. And I don't think we do a good enough job putting pressure on the corporate world to come in and help. I mean, these people are working people. They need a grocery store, and so many of them have difficulty getting groceries, and they're on the bus, and it's hard to have 2 kids and a gallon of milk and a gallon of detergent, and you still have other things. But I think we have done not a good enough job, and I think we need to lean more on the corporate community to speak up, and we need to push these grocers more, and we haven't done that.
Thank you. You want to give a hand? There is a question from the audience. They're looking at the fact that we've had public safety, economic development, education, and other initiatives over a 16-year period. But their concern is that they're seeing a consistent decline. When is enough enough? And how long do we have to wait for the community to get what they deserve to have? I'm going to begin that question with Van Leer.
Thank you. Again, I'm the new kid on the block. I focus on, throughout my career, getting results, and because I've had some profound moments in my life, just with losing people and such, but it's any project I get involved with, when I wake up and get out of bed and get behind it, I become obsessed with it. It's got to be about how do we help people. So it's people first. And I don't want to be back here if you choose me to be on this Board of Commissioners in 2 years, talking about the same thing. I want to be talking about those results. We've had a lot of results with the Board of Commissioners as is, but I want to listen to you, and today, I'm taking down notes where we can apply results, maybe work with Harris Teeter. You leverage my business background, we'll go meet with them, I'll go with Arthur Griffin, we'll talk with them, and we'll get Harris Teeter back there. We'll get plans to come to fruition. Otherwise, I'm gonna not be here on purpose. I'm gonna stand behind those results and not just say and actually do the doing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Arthur Griffin?
I've already had enough. That's why I got back into politics. I've only been on there for 14 months, but I think you can see that we have an mobility program that wears on its sleeves. We're going to do something from 2 to 5 years. But I said when I ran for this thing just at 22, if you don't see any progress coming from me, don't vote for me. That's crazy. But don't vote for me if you don't see some results. I'm about results and accountability. And clearly, my colleagues have heard me say this at public meetings. I'm sick and tired of African Americans being the first premature deaths in Mecklenburg County. The highest HIV There are 278 new diagnoses of HIV. 70% of those are African Americans. You're on the bottom in terms of education. You're on the bottom in terms of health. You're on the bottom in terms of wealth. We have an MWBE program that was supposed to provide annual reports. We've never provided an annual report as a county commission. So I'm going to call ourselves out to make sure that we are accountable. Enough is enough, and we clearly have the capacity to make a difference. And I say to you, hold all your elected officials accountable. City council, county commission, school board, for results, rather than just identifying problems. What are you doing to move the needle and demonstrate that the needle has moved? So enough is enough, Madam Moderator, and I ask you to just follow me in terms of those things I said are important.
I'm going to ask Altman.
Thank you. When I got on the board in 2020, my number one priority was workforce development, which previous had not been a core priority of the Board of County Commissioners. We have to empower our residents to earn more money and to raise household incomes and to close the wealth gap. I think it's too hard for people to figure out who's hiring in Mecklenburg County. Where do I go to get the training? Can I get a scholarship? And will they definitely hire me? And what's my earning capacity? We need to make that easier for people. Every parent, pastor, and principal should know that, but they don't. And I think it's the county commission's obligation to help make that in everybody's hands, to connect industry with our residents and with our centers of learning. I serve on the Economic Development Committee, and I'm proud that we've brought 900 great paying jobs to Mecklenburg County in the last year, and I will continue to try to recruit fantastic employers and job opportunities that are paying above the average for whatever the job is, or we're not going to bring them here. On the subject of education, I am proud that over the 4 years that I've been on the Board of County Commissioners, despite what you may have heard, we raised CMS's baseline funding by $87 million, even as they were losing students. So their students were going like this, but our funding went like this by $87 million. And that's a baseline that it's about $596 million altogether in operating. And that's a number we'll never go beneath, okay? I'm also proud to have voted for the bond. I think I'm the only at-large commissioner who did. Regarding the other issues around education outcomes, we do need to have the school board up here, but I do want to address the third question, which was public safety. I have partnered with Sheriff McFadden. Am I done? Oh, darn, okay.
And Townsend, Ingram.
So I think I'm the one up here who's most closely related, that I have the most skin in the game. I most recently had used county services. But what I have noticed in interacting with the community over and over and over again, and the question that I've asked, and I think Mayor Baliles is just like sick of me asking, is when do each of the governmental agencies meet to talk about the problems that are all interrelated? So that would be a priority, right? And I know that county commissioners have an intergovernmental committee, and I hope that when I'm elected, they will appoint me to that committee, because I've got some things to say since I do have skin in the game. But the thing is this, we have to stop working in silos and competing for resources. That is critically important. I went to City Councilwoman Watlington's meeting at Friendship the other day, and it was concerning violence. It was obvious. We had a whole room full of resources, but they were working separately. When there was one resource individual who didn't know that the other resource individual existed, and she was like, well, where do I find you? How do I find you? So we need a centralized place, and I'm hoping that it will be the county's database, the county's website, where verified agencies will be housed, so that when someone is in a child's, I got a lot more to say.
Thank you. And then we have Pat Cotham to answer that question.
It's hard to sit here and about this question because it is a very valid question. But a lot of the problems start because of what our responsibilities are. Like public safety is really a city responsibility. There's a lot of, we each have our own major responsibilities, and then we have things that we intersect, and then we try to work together on some things. On the board of county commissioners, to get anything done, you have to get 5 votes for something. And on the city council, it's more. But a lot of these things, there are a lot of government, federal government and state government puts a lot of obstacles in front of us. And a lot of things could be better. The idea that, we buy the schools and have to give them to CMS, and then maybe they don't want them anymore, then we would have to buy them again, which we don't want to do. But instead, we would like to make them community resources and places for communities to use. And so there's a lot of obstacles that are put out. And that is, I deal with that, it seems like every day. And the more you learn about this, the more you realize how complicated these things are. And yes, we have increased our money for CMS, but also we want, at least there's some of us on the board, Commissioner Leak, Commissioner Griffin and I have really pushed for accountability, because the numbers go down, we give them more money, and then the children are still struggling with reading. So if anyone wants to talk a few hours about this later, let me know.
Let's give them a round of applause, please.
Come on, please welcome.
And we want to thank the audience. We did receive your questions. We will find a way to get your questions answered and get the answers to you. If you filled out the registration form, we will work to get those questions answered. At this time, we're going to ask that the at-large candidates, those who are already in position, those who are running to become in position, to please step down. And then we're going to ask the candidates who are running for District 41 if you will take the stage. And if you can give them another hand, please. And as we are preparing to hear from those candidates who are running for District 41, we're going to ask, first we want to thank you for coming out. Hope that the food that we have had for you was suppable for you, and we're going to ask that you pick your trash up and put it in the trash on the way out to help us clean up, if you would. Thank you. Thank you so much for taking the stage and being ready to provide the audience with answers to the questions that we will put before you. Before we do that, if you could take 30 seconds to introduce yourselves and to share with us why you are running for District 41. And we will go in alphabetical order. We will start with Kendrick Cunningham. Then we will go to Lucille Puckett and Caleb Theros. Did I pronounce? Tetros. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. It is so great to be among familiar faces. My name is Kendrick Cunningham. I am a native resident of Charlotte, North Carolina, and a graduate of the Philippa Berry Academy of Technology. My first job in politics was as I was a legislative intern inside of the General Assembly under Yvonne Lewis Hawley, and I am no native to getting policy agenda set when it comes to the issues that are most important to us. In 2022, I helped to agenda set an anti-source of income discrimination policy with the Charlotte City Council, And then throughout this year, I've been working alongside the Biden-Harris administration, Mom Demands Action, and many gun violence prevention advocates as a White House stakeholder to establish our statewide Office of Violence Prevention, our Office of Violence Prevention here in Mecklenburg County, to ensure that we are funding our community violence intervention organizations and our hospital-based violence intervention program to reduce violence by 10% by 2030.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you. My name is Lucille Puckett, and I want to start with a quote. The world will not be destroyed by those that do evil, but by those who watch and doesn't do nothing. I am running for Senate District 41 because I want to do something. I want to go to Raleigh, and I want to be your voice. I want to advocate for you. I am the candidate that's most on the ground, out here in the trenches. Today, when we had the police shooting on Bettysford Road, I was there, talking to the community, talking to the families, as I always do. I lost my son to gun violence, so I am close to the issues. I want to go to Raleigh to take my experience fighting, advocating, and being in the community, being that voice. I want to go to Raleigh to use my human service degree, my bachelor's degree in social work, and my master's degree in business administration. I want to take
It's 30 seconds to introduce yourself.
I want to take those skills to Raleigh. Thank you.
Great. Hello, everyone. My name is Caleb Tedros. I'm running for North Carolina Senate 41 because our state needs fresh and young leadership. Our state right now is ranking low amongst education attainment. If we look at economic development, many communities, especially around here, are left out of the conversation. We have a mental health epidemic tearing at the fabrics of our neighborhoods. And those items aren't new. They're the same ones I saw when I was a student at Harding High School, when I went to UNC Charlotte, making the drive to go to neighborhood meetings on the west side. And it's because of these same archaic solutions that we continue to find ourselves here. We need young and fresh ideas, but proven leadership, someone who's been in the community and at leadership levels to carry that on to Raleigh. So again, my name is Caleb Tedros. I'm excited to be here and answer any questions that may come from the community. Thank you.
If there are any questions that the audience may have, please see Ms. Gottlieb and pass those questions along. You are running to represent Mecklenburg County in the state of North Carolina. How will you work collaboratively with senators across the aisle to achieve the, what's my word? I'm missing the word. To achieve balance within the community? Okay.
Sure. First thing we have to do is find specific problems that we can agree on. Something that I'm running on is mental health. Within Charlotte alone, roughly 17 students in CMS are considering suicide every day. And that affects not only Democrats, but also Republicans. So the biggest indicator of what you will do is what you have done. So on the local level, we worked with the local Democratic Party and the Republican Party to try to push for something called the Mental Health First Aid for students in CMS. And so the first thing we have to do is find these not so sexy problems like mental health and R&D within our corporate partners, but work with the Republicans in order to push those items. And so through that, we're going to be able to solve a lot of the problems that we have. But it's going to be through collaboration over an experienced amount of time and something that somebody has already done before.
Thank you. Lucille Puckett?
Can't wait till we get to Raleigh to work across party lines. We need to be doing that now, as I am. I work with senators that's currently in office and also some of those that's running. Even those that have asked me, we need your voice in Raleigh. We need your experience. We need your lived experience to bring that, to Raleigh. Because our issues are their issues. Homicides are not just happening on the Bettysford Road corridor. Violent crimes are not just happening on the Bettysford Road corridor. And when we talk about mental health, there was a mental health crisis today that caused that police officer to shoot the young man. When we talk about mental health, that was a mental health crisis in Valentine that caused that young man to break into that woman's home and molest her. We need someone who have these lived experiences to go to Raleigh and not wait till we get to Raleigh. Again, working across party lines now. These issues need to be resolved now as we are running for office.
Thank you. The next question,
I don't think I answered.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Please, I'm being flooded here.
No, it's okay. There are many issues that are very important to us aside, from mental health. There's violent crime that is surging in Charlotte. There's also a 36,000 affordable housing gap that we need to that we need assistance from the state with the funding that they have in their housing trust fund to make our housing trust fund and our housing goals realizable. When working across the line, and one of the ways I've worked across the line currently as we speak is through advocacy with the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. When we were able to achieve that by getting Senator Tom Tillis on board and giving us the votes, that was one of the reasons how we were able to get our statewide Office of Violence Prevention and our local Office of Violence Prevention funded so we could have unprecedented opportunities to do the work that we need to get done in order to reduce violent crime in our community by 10%. Now, getting those things done as a legislative assistant, I have the skills set and I know what needs to be done by having one-on-ones with my legislative staff and state senators, both Democrats and Republicans. One-on-ones is how we're going to understand what are the priorities of each senator and each representative. Every senator and every representative, we all have one vote on there. And if we're able to understand more about if we're able to understand our similarities rather than consistently point out our differences, there are issues inside of our hood that people inside of rural communities have that experience as well. So making sure that Republicans, that I'm lifting up the stories from my constituents and inviting my constituents to the General Assembly so that their voices are uplifted is how I'm going to work across the aisle to get the policies we need done.
Thank you. And if we could all respect the time of 90 seconds to answer, not 90 seconds, yes, 90 seconds to answer the question, that would help us move along. Have a question, and we will ask the question of Lucille Puckett first. How can you help move the city transit plan forward with the legislator?
Well, having that conversation. I mean, we know that transportation is mandatory, it's necessary. We need to go to Raleigh. We need to be talking about bringing those dollars here, without housing, with low-income housing, affordable housing. They're pushing us further and further out of the city. So in order to come into the city to be able to work, play, shop, or do whatever, we know that we're going to need the dollars to come here. So we need to start having those genuine conversations about, first of all, the money and the need that's here in Charlotte.
Kendra, if you can answer that question, please.
Yes, it is very challenging. When we look at the Charlotte Strategic Mobility Plan, which we adopted in 2022, one of the things we failed to do was bring Republicans into that conversation. And when we're currently having those conversations right now about our public transportation, we have a lot of transportation projects, including the Silver Line, that's going to go east and west. As someone who's very I feel very strongly that we need to make sure that the light rail goes east and west so that communities of color are connected easily to uptown. So we need to make sure that we're talking with Republicans first before we're having our grand conversations and releasing our plans so that, they feel that transportation is a roads first kind of thing. And I think it's just we need to have conversation to understand how us as a metropolitan city and how we want to create a more walkable. Charlotte 2040 Comprehensive Plan strongly implements a 10-minute community. We want to build strong 10-minute communities throughout Charlotte. And with the current understanding from Republicans that the state is going to be a roads first state, that's not possible for us in Charlotte. So bringing them into those conversations and making sure that they understand the importance of walkable communities for metropolitan cities like Charlotte, North Carolina, is how I think we can help best build the bridge so that we can begin to get a little bit of funding. We're not going to get all the funding we want, but just a little bit of funding for our projects.
Tetris?
Yeah, with transportation, it's just gonna come down to funding. I think the federal government and even at the state level has allocated a certain sum for our light rail systems. But at the local level, especially the municipalities, we're gonna have to come up with funding ourselves. With transportation, we need to interlock that conversation with affordable housing. I think we keep mentioning the current light rail system. The Blue Line extension was sold to us as an affordable way of transportation for people who couldn't afford cars. I don't know if you guys have been on the light rail, but those aren't necessarily our communities using that light rail. And so what we need to do with our transportation policy is, before we implement, especially any kind of light rail or even rail at all, ensure that those communities who can't afford, whether it's cars or any forms of transportations, are the first folks using these systems. This creeps into affordable housing. I mean, land trusts. Whenever you purchase a certain piece of land for the light rail or any transportation, are we also purchasing the land around it to ensure that those who can't have transportations are the ones being able to use it? Look around, along South End right now. Look what happened to the affordable housing crisis when that piece of transportation was put in. So there's an appropriate and correct way to introduce transportation into our communities, but it can't be sold as the way that we've previously done it.
Thank you. The next question. How will you protect the reproductive rights of women if you are elected to serve in the North Carolina senators? And we'll begin that question with Cunningham.
I can make sure I can pledge right now that I will not support any legislation that will pass a national abortion ban. As someone who comes from a woman, I very strongly believe that women, they have the ability to make their own decision, and I definitely would not support anything that takes away their access to reproductive health care. And I also, one of the things I have the pleasure of doing as a White House stakeholder is I do help to build the invite list and also help to build the tours for our White House representatives, such as Vice President Harris, and I had the pleasure of building her invite list for her Fight Our Reproductive Freedoms tour, because I am very well connected to that space of policy work and organizing work. So I will continue to be on the front lines with women and making sure that they have the right to make their own decisions.
Tetris?
Yes, 100%. I think politicians should be left out of any conversation that has to do with women's health. I think when we talk about liberty, when we talk about even the slogan for North Carolina, being able to make your individual choice, oftentimes middle-aged white men can't be making the decision for millions of women. But it's not enough just to say that you won't vote for abortion. What is it you're going to do also for women? Access to contraceptions. In North Carolina, we have many rural areas that don't have easy access to health care. Many women are affected by this. Many are not able to see not only a primary doctor, but even a specialist. And so it's not enough for us to just say, if abortion comes up, I'm not going to vote for it. That's a given. But outside of that, what else are we going to do to further the rights for women to be able to make their own individual choices and body autonomy? That's the one thing we have to do.
And Lucille?
The bottom line, as a woman myself, my body, my choice. Legislators have no right in making any decision for me or for women.
Thank you. And a follow-up question to that is, what is your start over. So it is basically the same question. So let's move forward. Generally speaking, what do you think about funding for a new stadium for the Panthers? Is this an online or? Okay. This question, and we will ask this question of Tetris.
My last name is Tedros, by the way.
Tedros.
It's funny the way the question was worded. Generally, with any kind of sports issues, you have to look at the specifics. Obviously, if there's going to be positive economic output for those in the community, you're for it. One thing with sports is, how do we measure that economic output? I believe Babson Capital or Barings has done the economic analysis for the Panthers and both the Hornets. And I have actual questions into how are we counting those figures? How are we counting the output to the community? They oftentimes say when we introduce a new stadium, it's going to be an increase in for Uber drivers, it's going to be an increase for the restaurant around it. But how much of it? So how many millions of dollars do we have to sacrifice in order to see that economic output? And so we need to have specific discussions over what are the second and third order effects of introducing whether it's another Panther stadium, another Hornet stadium. And I think, inside that question is actually the problem, in thinking that is a general thing whether you support sports or not. We need a state senator and elected officials who are looking at the fine print, who are actually care about the community enough to say, what are the second and third order effects of having another sports team in my community? And what am I foregoing when I'm allowing the sports team to come to my community?
Thank you. Puckett?
We should not put that burden on the taxpayers. Panther Stadium, that is a for-profit business. The Panthers make bukus of money. If they want to look at rebuilding a stadium, we need to look at it at what their investment is into our city. We should not be handcuffed into trying to make backdoor deals or agreements with the Panther owners. So when we take that question to the taxpayers and ask the taxpayers, what do we need, what do we want, how do we want to invest into the stadium, then and only then should that actually be, addressed, and to see what kind of money the city will actually invest into the Panther Stadium.
Cunningham, thank you.
Yes, I agree with much of what's been said. When thinking about funding for a new stadium, I'd rather the money does come out of the state budget than it does out of our own budget for the city of Charlotte. So I do agree with much of what's been said on this panel. And furthermore, I would also like to understand the impact if there was the land has already been zoned for a new stadium across the street from the Panther Stadium, which a lot of people don't know. So that it's going to happen with or without community support. It's going to happen regardless. So I think when that conversation pops up, it's about what are the benefits that we're going to get out of that, and ensuring that the taxpayer dollars that do go towards the stadium, that is also things that we're getting in that deal, such as affordable housing and workforce development through that funding.
Okay, thank you. And I promise try my best not to destroy your last name. As a state legislator, what legislative committee or committees would you like to serve on? Tedros? Tedros.
Yes.
Thank you. We're going to get it right.
Yes, ma'am. So, and thank you for the question. I think at the top is going to have to be Health and Human Services. I think I've shared that one of my top priorities, especially with this campaign and being a state senator, is mental health. Oftentimes, it's the precursor to any problems that society has. When you talk about the unhoused population, when you talk about substance abuse, just the number of individuals in the state dying from fentanyl overdoses, or it's just that kid in the classroom that can't focus because of what's going on at home. A lot of this derives from mental health, and we don't have enough resources. So I'd definitely like to contribute on that committee, but also economic development. I think very quickly, we had a question earlier talking about food deserts. One thing we didn't talk about is income. Target or any of these stores, oftentimes they look at the AMI before they move in, the annual median income, before they decide to invest in that area. You ever think it's a coincidence that Target is always near Starbucks, or on the other side you always see a food line, a Subway, and probably a Chinese restaurant? That's how it works. And so what we need to ensure that we're doing is that population increases the income. And we need to do that by having industries that are not giving mere employment, but actual careers to this community. So that way, we don't go around every 2 years begging a grocery store, but we're actually attracting the grocery stores. And so Health and Human Services would be at the top, economic development, probably my top two.
Thank you. Cunningham?
Yes, my top two would be appropriations. The Appropriations Committee is the committee that does the work of allocating funding to all of our programs and services that we offer throughout the state. And one of my one of my priorities as a state senator is that I want to support legislation that secures funding for diverse housing options, public transportation, gun violence reduction, and Main Street restorations. So being on the Appropriations Committee is going to be very important that we get the money allocated for those things. Second is Health and Human Services. As someone who is, an open LGBT person, I understand how the HIV epidemic is impacting my community. And another point, another thing I pledge as state senator is to support legislation that combats our STI epidemic and promotes access to gender-affirming healthcare for transgender individuals, and also that will mandate coverage for mammograms. So Health and Human Services and the Appropriations Committee.
Thank you. And
The question was,
as a state legislator, what legislative committee or committees would you like to serve on?
my priority, the committee that I would love to serve on would be public safety and also housing.
Okay, that's it?
That answers the question.
Let's give these candidates a round of applause, and we want to thank you for your patience. We did go over time this evening, but we believe that it's important for you to, you have a question? Okay, so we do have some announcements for you, but please give them another round of applause.
I'm live. Can you guys hear me? Awesome, awesome. All right, I'm promised to be short because I know we went over on time. My name is Cliff. I am the Northwest Area Coordinator for Mecklenburg County Democratic Party. So I am a volunteer for the party on the county level. What does that mean? I am responsible for all of the precincts in Northwest Mecklenburg County. So my territory runs up Bays Ford, all the way to 485, all the way over to Wilkinson Boulevard. The third largest area group in the county with 17 precincts and the largest black voter population. What do? I help organize precincts. I work hand in hand with the precinct chairs, like Bobby Draper and others. I organize events. We had a spades event last night, right? So one of our biggest focuses right now is voter turnout, right? We gotta turn out, right? And there's a lot of focus on the Northwest corridor because this is where most of the black voters are, right? I'm up here because I want to tell you about the events that we're doing, but at the same time, we need volunteers. I need help. This area needs help. The party needs help, okay? We have a dire need and we got to get the black vote out. We only had 5% of registered voters in the county turn out for the last election. That's a terrible number. We have to do better, right? I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but it's going to take us to have to reach out to those who aren't here, all right? We got to plant ourselves in places where the people that aren't participating are, all right? That's why we had the spades tournament at Harrow's last night. People were asking, well, why aren't the politicians here? Why aren't we doing this? Why aren't we doing that? We got to be in the community, all right? I fuss a lot about that with the upper members of the party on the board and all that about how we got to be more of a face in the community. We can't be the party of the people if we can't connect with the people. And that's what I want us to do, all right? We talk about, somebody asked Charles, what is he going to do as far as engaging with the community? I've been coming to these events for the last 5-6 months now. He's been there, right? Caleb, he's been there. Yvette, she's been there, right? They were there last night. They weren't really pushing what they were doing, but they were hanging out, playing spades, enjoying themselves, and then also just letting people know what they're doing, all right? But at the same time, we got to meet them in the middle, and we got to show up too. And that's what I'm asking for everybody here, is to help me help our area so that we can show up, turn out votes for November, from the top down, bottom up, and make this thing happen. That's all I got to say.
Again, thanks everyone for coming out, and thank you, Cliff, for what you're doing. Very important that we have new people involved, and it's wonderful to see these new folks here tonight. Mary Gill is here tonight. She chaired this precinct many years, did a tremendous job. Thank you for being here. Thanks again to the church and to everyone. This is a group effort. Nancy, fabulous job with the questions, and we just happen to host this, but all the precincts too here are part of us. We all chip in, and we want everybody to be a part. Please see Cliff so he can get some help. If you did not sign up, please sign up on your way out. We'll just email you. We don't bother folks, but it's important we all be part of this because we know what November means. Not that March isn't important, but everybody in this room needs to be part of what we have to do in November. So any other announcements? We had Councilmember Margie Molina here. I think she's left. Any other elected officials? Mary?
If you asked a question, if you you turned in a card and we haven't answered your question, could you please put your email address on the sign-in? Because we will get those questions answered for you.
Again, everybody, thanks. Any other announcements? Yes, you want to give the details on that? I know it's.
So basically, there's the big county meeting next week on the 7th.
So the Democratic Party precinct meeting, the Democratic Party is hosting a, I guess, kind of virtual meeting for all precincts to organize. All of us are organized, but we still will participate. And so he's just mentioning that you could be part of that precinct meeting by contacting the Mecklenburg County Democratic Party.
Yeah, so the meeting, basically what happened is the meeting has been centralized as far as the physical location, what was happening previously. Everybody, all the precincts met where they wanted to meet, right? Now we have a central location, but there is a Zoom option, okay? Because everybody has to be there. So either you can go there physically or you can attend via Zoom. So you have the option to do one or the other. Oh.
Ones that have I'm sorry, I'm a precinct chair. So my precinct in particular, 89, we're going to be participating specifically in a Zoom meeting with the African American Caucus. So there are additional options. That's something that we were tossing around back and forth, Cliff. And so our county chair has decided, yes, that we can meet the way we know our own precincts want to meet. So if you want to go to this meeting, get in touch with your precinct chair. If you don't know who your precinct chair is, contact me, Yvette Townsend Ingram, and I will find your precinct chair. I will connect you with your right precinct so that you can attend this meeting. It's critically important. And I think we don't have to, but we can elect officers, and we need officers. Precinct 89 needs officers. I need to throw the reins to somebody else, so y'all come.
Thank you, Yvette. Early voting starts on February 15th, and of course, general election, or rather the primary election is on March the 6th, so 5th and Tuesday, March 5th. So anyhow, that's all I had. Any other comments or announcements? Joyce?
I'd like to invite you to forums that Friendship Missionary Baptist Church is sponsoring on February 20th, February 22nd, and February 27th. And it should start around 6:30 until 8:30. We'll have a full slate of candidates in person. Thank you.
All right, well, that's it. Nobody else. No, but thank y'all. We know it ran long, but really appreciate it. Very important. Thank you again for all the candidates. And
If you were eating or drinking at your seat, please pick up your trash, your cans, your plates, and place them in the trash can. Thank you.